Seems things are not going quite so well up in Scotland for Nicola Sturgeon.
Seeing as it's Valentine's Day, I wanted to talk about something I love: the ever-declining political life of Nicola Sturgeon and indeed the SNP. Before we proceed, let's remind ourselves of what the devolved Scottish Government is responsible for. The devolved government for Scotland is responsible for most of the issues of day-to-day concern to the people of Scotland, including education, justice, rural affairs and transport. The once magnificent Scottish education system is on its arse, so much so that the average kid in Scotland is now stupider than the average kid in England. Fuck me. Bearing in mind that Gavin Williamson and Michael Gove have both been UK Secretary of State for Education in Nicola Sturgeon's time, that is one hell of a fucking achievement. As for the transport system, I was in Edinburgh recently, and instead of flying home, I just leapt down one of the giant potholes. And whilst the NHS is considered good in Scotland, largely because all prescriptions are free and waiting times are lower on average than England, where are they not? A cursory search of the statistics show that the SNP are struggling to pay for it, and they are taxing the shit out of anyone who dares to earn over 40k a year to pay for it. Jeezy peeps, man. It's messier than Hogmanay up there. Given all this, you'd be mistaken for thinking that those elected to power in Holyrood would know what the ordinary people of Scotland want, and more so, need. Well, a new huge poll undertaken last week shows that the people of Scotland, as in those the government serves, believe the SNP's top three priorities are as follows. 1. Independence. 2. Gender recognition. 3. Trans rights. The same poll showed that the people's priorities are 1. NHS, 2. Cost of living, and 3. The economy, which is broadly the same as everyone else across the UK. At least the UK government are concentrating on fucking those three up in the right order, in a time when the UK has had more prime ministers than Scotland has had men in women's prisons. Nicola Sturgeon has taken her party and their aspirations and flushed them down the shitter. All she had to cling on to was that she could desperately try and spin next year's general election as a de facto second referendum. But alas, the good people of Scotland have taken a giant shit on that too. That huge poll, it shows that SNP voters are not all independence voters, something everyone already knew. And besides, the no vote has taken a 12-point lead. 12-point lead. If you are watching this and you want independence for Scotland, you will have to get rid of Nicola Sturgeon and rebuild your country. My advice is listen to the people. They are screaming the answer at you. See you, Sturgeon.
There's a new poll out by Lord Ashcroft which reveals a massive gulf between the Scottish Government and their voters on independence and indeed on gender reform. And this is really quite an extraordinary poll, I think, because obviously the SNP has had 15 years of dominance, and it also sort of then counters the argument about the direction that the Scottish Government is taking, particularly the legal challenge to the UK government's gender recognition reform bill, and also about constitutional change. The fact that obviously Nicola Sturgeon is determined to make the next election a de facto vote on Scottish independence. So it is extraordinary because the polling of more than 2,100 people by Lord Ashcroft has found that a large majority, including many sceptical SNP supporters, are not behind the moves that she is currently making. And when you look at the sample that they took, only 1 in 5, 20% or 21%, agreed that the next general election should be taken as a de facto independence referendum. 67% agreed that people will vote at elections for lots of different reasons. And only 44% of those who voted SNP in the 2019 general election were in favour of using the next one as an independent referendum, de facto independent referendum. And what I find really interesting is when you look at what people in Scotland are worried about, they say number 1, health, number 2, the NHS, and number 3, the cost of living. When you ask the Scottish Government, they say something completely different.